WNBA, as you know, they're calling for players in the WNBA are calling for more money. They 9%, I believe, accordingly. They get 9% of total revenue compared to roughly 50% of the revenue of NBA players. Should they be getting a larger share of the revenue in the WNBA?
Yes. I mean, I think the share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and they are going to get a big increase in this cycle of collective bargaining, and they deserve it.
People still talk about this league like it's terrified of real money, like the ceiling is untouchable, like the rules are holy scripture. And honestly, that's kind of cute, because someone just struck a match, dropped it, and walked away grinning. A move just got approved that was never supposed to be possible. Numbers started circulating that sounded illegal to even whisper. And the same people who've spent years saying growth takes time are suddenly sprinting for the nearest exit. This isn't about who got paid. It's about who just lost control. And why the entire power structure shifted overnight.
Heard her in the past go on record and talk about money and her expectation and her hope that she makes enough money to build a house somewhere. The tone that she took had some people pessimistic about whether she would be returning to the Fever. But we can see from here that her mentality is not that she is going to be leaving. She is going to get plenty of money because of the nature of the CBA that is being negotiated. In the last CBA, she was making about a half max contract, just over $100,000 per year.
The WNBA spent years selling the idea that it was finally stable, finally growing, finally untouchable, and then somehow managed to fumble the one thing it absolutely could not afford to screw up.
The epic fumble of all fumbles is the WNBA fumbling this entire Caitlin Clark situation. It is absolutely a travesty and embarrassing. I didn't even see this Lexi Brown and Joy Taylor situation. I've posted plenty of things with Lexi Brown. Lexi Brown was one of the people that admitted Caitlin Clark was targeted by WNBA players. She admitted that there was a level of hostility toward Caitlin Clark that was not toward any other player.
Because while the league was busy patting itself on the back for progress, the rest of the sports world was watching a quiet masterclass in how to undervalue your own golden goose. Right up until someone richer, louder, and far less patient rolled in with a checkbook and a smirk.
When she announced she was going pro, I immediately ran over to Lynn Dunn and said, "We have Elvis." She's like, "What?" I said, "There's been a lot of singers in music. There's only one Elvis. This is Elvis." And I knew, I've been in sports for 40 years, I knew this was something special. There's moving the needle. She's the needle. And I say it, there's been no one like her in...
People really thought the system was working, that the league had its star, the momentum was locked in, and all Caitlin Clark had to do was smile, absorb the hits, and be grateful. That belief aged about as well as milk left on a Phoenix sidewalk in July.
Female bird. She had Van Slugenhagen on her. She was like, "I'm offended that y'all have white defensive players guarding me," and she put her in the torture chamber. You should have known from her little face that she didn't want this matchup from the beginning. Caitlin reminds me of what Dame does. If anybody ever noticed, her first shot always a three. First quarter, second quarter, third. She sets the distance on her first shot, so you have to guard her there. Now she can do whatever she wants to do. She's playing a chess game. That's what Dame does. He starts his game off, and he's gonna shoot a deep ass three to force you to guard her from there.
Because when your biggest attraction is getting body checked like a rental car and flying commercial while carrying the league's relevance on her back, you're not building a future, you're advertising a clearance sale. Caitlin Clark didn't just join the WNBA. She dragged it into conversations it had been begging to be part of for decades. Sold-out arenas stopped being special and became routine. TV ratings no longer needed charity explanations. Merch moved so fast it made executives nervous, because demand exposed just how flimsy the infrastructure really was. She turned casual viewers into regulars and skeptics into ticket buyers, all while earning a salary that wouldn't cover parking at some NBA arenas. And then there's Sophie Cunningham, somehow the most misunderstood piece of this entire story. People still pretend pro sports are only about box scores, as if personality, marketability, and audience connection are just cute side effects. Sophie brings edge, visibility, and a brand that travels far beyond the hardwood. She creates reactions, debates, and engagement leagues spend millions trying to manufacture. Put her next to Caitlin Clark and you don't just have talent, you have a traveling media event.
Any other rookies from the pages, none of them dealt with the things that Caitlin had to deal with. And Lexi Brown admitted it. Now we have them. She makes it very clear. She's dealt with Nafisa Collier. She's been a teammate of hers. And these players, rather than getting a deal done, they are more focused on getting Kathy Engelbert fired. And this whole thing is backfiring on these players to the point where they couldn't even get a response from the owners. The owners are saying, let's move on free agency.
Now here's where it gets uncomfortable for the WNBA. While the league was busy pretending everything was under control, Adam Silver wasn't asleep at the wheel. He didn't need to make noise. He didn't need to posture. All he had to do was watch the numbers, watch the chaos, and recognize a pattern he's seen leagues lose to before. When organizations refuse to evolve, markets don't wait politely. They correct violently. The league had one job: protect the players dragging it forward. Instead, it let resentment disguise itself as competitiveness and confusion masquerade as toughness. Caitlin Clark absorbed fouls that looked less like defense and more like a hazing ritual nobody wanted to admit existed. Officiating felt inconsistent at best and dismissive at worst. Fans noticed. Casual viewers noticed. Investors definitely noticed. And when a product starts looking unstable, money starts looking elsewhere. That elsewhere turned out to be very well funded and extremely serious. So when reports surfaced that Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham were being courted with contracts that made WNBA salaries look like lunch money, it wasn't shocking. It was inevitable. You can't suppress market value forever without consequences. The real surprise wasn't the offers. It was how little resistance the league seemed capable of offering once those numbers entered the room.
She gets not a single percentage more than that. She is going to be making at least $500,000 a year under the new CBA. She may be making more than that depending on the CBA that they finally settle upon. But it's not going to be anything that she's not going to be able to fulfill all of her financial desires with. To say nothing of her participation in Project B, which is going to give her at least $2 million for a
$50 million does not negotiate with $76,000. It laughs at it, pats it on the head, and asks if it wants to come along for the ride. Adam Silver didn't have to lift a finger to obliterate the WNBA's bargaining position. He just let reality do the work. The NBA model understands star protection, revenue sharing, and visibility because it learned the hard way. Talent goes where it's treated best. When a league publicly undervalues its biggest assets, it sends a message to the entire market that those assets are available. And available they are. Other organizations aren't circling Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham out of charity or curiosity. They see leverage. They see a league struggling to defend its own rules while asking its stars to sacrifice indefinitely for a promise of future growth that's always one season away. They see global names driving engagement worldwide, paired with working conditions that scream local, minor league energy. That gap isn't a problem for outside investors. It's an opportunity. The WNBA tried to sell patience as a virtue while others sold ownership, equity, and respect. It framed low pay as a temporary inconvenience while others treated massive contracts as the starting point. One side asked for loyalty. The other offered private jets, global exposure, and generational financial security. That comparison isn't difficult, no matter how much tradition you sprinkle on top.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who appeared on the Today Show in New York earlier this week, speaking out.
So in an exclusive, anchor Craig Melvin asked the commissioner what he thought about players in the WNBA demanding more money and whether they should have a larger. Yes, they do deserve it. I mean, it is ridiculous how less they make than women or than men. So the collective bargaining agreement between...
This is where Adam Silver's quiet dominance really shows. He understands you don't block competition by pretending it doesn't exist. You block it by making sure your product never looks fragile. The WNBA did the opposite. It exposed internal tension, inconsistent leadership, and an unwillingness to adapt fast enough to protect momentum. When Stephen A. Smith kept sounding the alarm, it was easy to dismiss him as noise. In hindsight, he was narrating a slow-motion collapse. Because the moment athletes realize they have options, power shifts instantly. Silence becomes strategy. Non-denials become leverage. Every day the league avoids directly addressing these offers, it signals uncertainty. Every day Caitlin Clark boards a commercial flight while generating millions, it reinforces the idea that loyalty is being mistaken for obligation. Every ignored foul and every brushed-off controversy adds another reason to listen when someone else calls. The WNBA is now facing the terrifying realization that it doesn't actually own its future. It borrowed relevance from Caitlin Clark and assumed she'd never ask for it back. It assumed players would tolerate being underpaid because history said they had nowhere else to go. That assumption died the moment outside organizations proved they were willing to build something new instead of begging for entry into something broken. Adam Silver didn't destroy the WNBA by intervening. He destroyed the illusion that it was immune to competition by simply letting market forces operate, and in doing so, exposed just how brittle the structure really was.
You got Caitlin Clark, and everybody's excited. You got money. Now, here's the deal when it gets real interesting, and you start talking about money because you got the Kansas City Commission, right? And Adam Silver, you open up a can of worms is bigger than he could do, right? Because you got now a situation where the WNBA, okay, there's not going to be a 90% revenue split anymore, right?
A league that can't protect its stars can't demand their loyalty. A system that won't pay its most valuable players can't act shocked when those players start listening elsewhere. If the two most marketable names in women's basketball walk, the narrative flips overnight. The WNBA stops looking like the destination and starts looking like a stepping stone. And once that perception sets in, it's almost impossible to undo. Leagues live and die on the belief that they are the pinnacle. Lose that belief and you lose leverage with everyone: players, fans, sponsors, investors. The irony is brutal. The league finally got everything it had been chasing for decades: attention, ratings, relevance, cultural buzz. And then it treated that success like a problem instead of a gift. It tried to manage stardom instead of embracing it. It tried to cap momentum instead of protecting it. Now it's watching from the sidelines while others offer the very things it refused to prioritize. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to leave to make the point. The mere possibility that she could has already changed everything. Sophie Cunningham doesn't need to sign anything to expose the cracks. Her inclusion alone highlights how modern sports economics actually work. Together, they represent a future the WNBA helped create, and now seems incapable of sustaining. Adam Silver understood that moment before the league did. He didn't have to say a word. The damage happened quietly, through contrast, through competence, through the uncomfortable realization that someone else will always be willing to do what you won't.